My man, Dean, thank you so much for coming on the Winners Paradigm podcast, brother. It's been an honor being in a group and getting to know you on a personal level, but you have a kick ass story, brother. So I wanted to get you on today, talking about that, talk about what you're passionate about, and then really help men heal. So I'll turn the floor to you, brother. A little bit about yourself. What are you passionate about, man?
Sure. Alondis, first off, thank you, brother, for having me on here. Super grateful. Just a beautiful day to be up and, you know, um, life's a gift, right? So we have an opportunity every day to start with a clean vision of what we want, right? And, having this platform, this opportunity, um, I've had these visions before, right? And you and I talk about this in the men's group, how important it is to be super clear and intentional how you want to show up every day, right? And having the right mindset so that you can work towards achieving that happiness that you want in your life, right? So,
Boom.
um, going back to me, I always look back to your childhood, right? You look at your timeline of your life. You look at, hey, listen, do I look at it as a negative or do I look at it as a positive? That's your first choice, right? A lot of people, when they look back, they're feeling that pain and that suffering, right? And you and I know how important your mindset is, but I want to share this with everybody out there listening in your audience and share with them a little bit about my story. You know, I used to grow up living to a label. And here's the thing, your identity of who you see yourself as, it truly matters, right? That reflection in that mirror every morning when you wake up to be the best version of yourself, that truly matters. Here's the thing, if you put a label on who you are, you cannot grow. So that work that we put in every single day intentionally has to have no lid on it, right? And then that way that when you wake up every day, you're saying to yourself, I remember when I was that part of my version of myself, but that's not completely who I am, right? And you understand that, right, Alondis?
Yeah, no, that was I'm laughing because that's exactly my thought process this morning. Cause I actually bought a new gym membership and so I can go to multiple gyms. So anyway, I got this new gym membership. I came home and it fucking hit me. And it's funny that you said visions because I've been saying that as well. My wife sometimes she's like, "What are you talking about? You get visions from God." I'm like, "Bro, you get visions." And I'm telling you, when you see this shit, it's so fucking clear that you're like, I don't want to fuck. Like for me, it was like, oh, you're gonna die a fucking violent, vicious death if you don't change your ways. And I seen this shit and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. Then had the vision, the funeral, and so forth. But anyway, coming back from the gym today, I was thinking exactly about that. And I was thinking about my shortcomings as a man. And I was like, fuck, you know what? It sucks that I couldn't be the man that I needed to be at that time. And that's why things didn't go my way in life. They didn't go the way I wanted. So you talked about, going back to as a child and really, taking in that label. I was the same way, brother, where it was like you're labeled as this, one house couldn't be myself authentically. And then the other house was like, you need to be a hustler, a player. And if you're anything else, you're a B. So for me, it was always having that ego and then learning. My mom's side was ego's a terrible thing. And then my dad's side's like ego's what makes us money, So for me, it was conflicting because it's like, well, I'm good at selling, but I have this negative mindset towards selling and so forth. So I love that you mentioned that because that was something that I talked about this morning on my story, for instance. And I'm like, yeah, I'm talking to that healed little boy who was in the corner fucking scared for his life because things were getting physical and he didn't know how to protect himself. So I find myself in that little boy sometimes and I'm not thinking clearly. And for you, brother, you've done the work, you've healed in those areas. What are some pointers that you can give us if somebody feels like they're reverting back to being scared, trying to protect themselves versus just looking inward and being that best individual they can be?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and thank you for sharing, a little bit about, your past. And I know we talked about it before. I think the most important part is, you're in the driver's seat of your own life, right? And I intentionally put myself in the driver's seat of my car because I knew I was going to say that's part of my message, right? So in the past, being bullied and having a learning disability, they were just labels, right? And they were moments. And who I am today is because of the challenges that I had back then, right? I overcame that learning disability. And what I did is I relabeled it, and when I was aware of it, I said, no, this is a superpower. Having ADHD is a superpower. That means that I have more energy than a normal person. And I know that if I don't stop, I can figure a way to get there. So I had to work harder. It took me 3 to 4 times as much to study for test to get an average grade. But I knew I showed up and I gave it everything I got, right? So that work ethic was built from that little boy that was bullied back in the day, right? So there's always an upside, right? I knew that, going to school for me wasn't something I enjoyed doing, um, because I was in survival mode at that time. But I realized that what you could not take away from me, that label that I was creating, which is the most important thing, because I was in the driver's seat, was a few things. Number one, like after school, going and working really hard and detailing cars and cutting grass, I went out there. I was responsible. I put the effort in, and no one can take that away from me. So you start to create a new identity and become unstuck. And I think this is a good message for people out there who may feel stuck at some point because they may not know the answer. That's where you're leaning into what you are capable of doing, right? You don't have to have all the answers, but I realize is that you don't have an option to stop, right? You have to keep going. And it's how you react to the moments and the feelings and emotions that you have in that moment, and then deciding what do you want to do in that moment moving forward, right? So that's how you get through those challenges. And I think that the focus should be on progress, not perfection, right? There's no perfect
Ooh,
version of yourself, right?
I like that a lot, brother. And you got me thinking. So I'm over here putting a comment below, but you got me thinking, and it's tough, especially that. And I love the way that you say you put yourself in the driver's seat. But it is conflicting. The reason why I say it's conflicting is because we run into the people who are so caught up in situation that they don't see the bigger picture. And again, me and you're talking about seeing visions. You're going to see things differently. We're going to have a different perspective, especially on it, because we can see, the more clarity within the situation that, hey, whatever it is, it's going to work out for us. I love the way that you said that. We're talking about ADHD, and they're saying you have a learning disability. I laughed when you were saying bullied, because you can tell when someone's been bullied in the way that they act and mannerisms and so forth. So sometimes, like, I'll be fucking hearing people talk, and I'm like, bro, I wish bullying still exists, because like some people fucking need it with the way that they be acting. But it's funny because it's like, yeah, it goes into exactly who you are as a human being, the way that you're considerate of other people, the way that you do business and so forth. Like, you can tell these little things. So it's not that I'm saying a joke that's, not bad. It's just like, you
Yeah.
can tell, what a person's been through by that, the way that they're speaking. And that's something that I'm learning more, and you hear that cliche, you have 2 ears for a reason and one mouth. But for you, brother, you can tell that you've done the work. You can tell that you've healed that child. You didn't listen to the labels. You redefined it for yourself. You put in extra work, which that's going to be the next thing after this, is talking about work ethic, because that's something I thrive in as well. Um, what was it like for you, when you made those changes, excuse me, and you started creating that man that you admire, and that starts doing these things continually to where it's not a big deal anymore?
Sure. So great question. So, um, the reason why I like life coaching and inspiring other people and helping them move forward is because I was stuck before. I know what that pain felt like, right? So 13 years ago, when I really got into personal development in my late 20s, my back was against the wall, right? I was at rock bottom, right? I seen the darkness. I was questioning, hey, listen, is it really worth being here? And in that moment, I can remember it clearly. The light was shining in the window in the house. I know it sounds funny, oh, light's shining in the house, but it actually was. And I sat there in a moment and I said, like, I know I feel super heavy right now, but I'm going to make it through it. And it's not as big as I feel in this moment. So I was able to pull myself away from the situation and look in. So I want to share with you a technique. I think that anybody who at any point feels a heavy feeling or emotion, I use this rule in coaching. Pretend that you put yourself on a building and you were looking down at the version of yourself with a video camera, right? And you were going to go to that younger version of yourself, and I'll do it right now. What would I say to the 28-year-old version of myself right now in this moment? Is there anything that I can do different? Is there any way that I can just take a step back and make it not feel heavier? And if I was to do the next best thing, what would that look like in the next moment? See, the secret to life to me is understanding that fact that we live moment to moment. Like when me and you get off this podcast, that's the past. We can reflect on it, but we still have an opportunity to be present in the moment. And that's what I find fascinating about personal development. When you're in the driver's seat of your life and you can take a step back and look macro at your life and then get back in the present moment, that's a skill set. And you have to practice that. And that's what saved my life. I'm telling you right now, I had support, I had accountability from other people, but that is my driver every day because I knew what it felt like, and having that skill and being able to use it every day because emotions are going to come and go, right? Life is 90% what happens to you. And then that 10%, how you react, that's what you can control, right? So I always use car analogies. You know, I was in the health and wellness industry for 10 years and now 10 years in the automobile industry as a professional and do life coaching. I think it's easy for people to connect and realize, you know, there are blind spots. There's moments that you didn't see coming in life, that hard phone call that may come in. What do you do in that moment? And I think that's really what's important.
Yeah, man. And I love the way that you said that. And you got me thinking, because that was something for me lately where its emotions have been high. I broke character one day, and it was understanding why, understanding like the hurt and where it came from and healing it. And I wasn't the man that I needed to be. And it led me to that moment. So for me, it was thinking back, and you're talking about talking to your younger self. And for me, last year, fucking December 31st, 2022, three or this three this year. I hit my rock bottom, and like I say, I talked to that man who got on his knees praying to God and asked for things to change. That's how he's going to align himself to his definition of success is by looking at all these things. So for me, it was tough just seeing how we measure and being like, bro, I don't measure at all of where I want to be. I don't admire this man that I've created. So I need to create something better. And I need to figure out as well, how to be the best that I can be. So I love the way that you said that because that was something for me, where when I went to that point, it was, hey, what is the one thing about life? And we talked about work ethic, we talked about ADHD and labels. And I was like, the only thing I've been fucking good at my whole life is just being at beast at whatever it is that I love. And the reason why I say be a beast in particular is like I was thinking about it. I'm like, you have to be a fucking savage sometimes. The reason why is because if you don't and you're too soft, people are going to walk all over you, and now you're going to have a fucking bigger problem you created. And then if you're too strict on that, you're going to create new things where it's not going to create the people that you want around you. But if you live in alignment every single day, if you do the hard shit, if you don't fucking care what anybody else says, kind of like how Sean Michael Crane all the time is telling us that he says the same thing like Wes Watson, like your next level is something that you can't afford. But two, don't listen to the fucking people who aren't doing it because they're not going to help you get to where you're going. Where we're going is somewhere different. And that's something I constantly remind myself. You know what I mean? It's like, don't get mad at another man because where we're going is two different fucking places. And there's a reason for that. So for you, brother, how do you keep yourself aligned every single day to make sure you're strapped for life, but also being the best dad, the best husband that you can be at the same time?
Sure. So I live my life by a code. It's called GTA, and it's funny because my first car was a Trans Am GTA, and I line the acronym like that. Gratitude, thankfulness, and appreciation. Right. Like when I was born premature, so that was the first fight that I had in life. All right, and I'm here, obviously, being bullied and mentally challenged, and that battle up to 28 years old. They're trying to find the identity and realizing that I am who I say I am, and I'm in the driver's seat of my car, and I have to stay in my lane in life, right? It's easy in this world to look on these platforms, for example, and see other people doing well. And what I realize is I want other people to do well, but my first job is to be healthy mentally, emotionally, physically, and in my soul, so I can show up every day as the best husband and father, right? And leader and help impact people's lives. So gratitude is number one. It's non-negotiable. And you hear that word and that's intentional. It just, I do it in the morning. I take a pause in the afternoon for 5 minutes. And then before I get in my driveway, when I wasn't super focused, probably at 33 years old, as far as being present, right? That was a moment in time where professionally transferring back in your household after a long day, work is still on your mind, right? And I realized, am I really showing up in this moment as the best present husband and dad? And I was like, no. And I sat in that night and I prayed and I said, well, then I'm going to do better. So this is now non negotiable. So I shut my technology off before I get in my driveway. Those 2.5 hours are the most important thing in my life at that time in that moment. And nothing else matters because I don't want to miss anything. And because I know that tomorrow is not granted and today is a gift, I'm soaking it all up.
Damn, bro, you're just dropping motherfucking metaphors today, but you're 100% right. And that's something I take into is just being present. For instance, we went to Disneyland last month, right? And
Yeah.
the whole time I'm not on my phone, my wife's watching me. One of my buddies hits me up, and she's on Instagram real quick because we're waiting for our food. And then I sent a voice message to him. She's looked at me. She's like, "That's the first time today you've been on your phone." And I was like, "Yeah, I really don't go on my phone, period, when family's home." Uh, I watch videos, whatever, go to the educational part or put YouTube on for my daughter, but like really, I don't have my phone that whole time. And it's cool because now I'm catching myself being more present within the moment, but two, just like relaxing. Cause I felt like that was one of the hardest things for me, is we have that insane work ethic. It was funny. One of the calls, you were talking, you're like, nobody's going to work harder for me. And I'm the same exact way to where it's like, bro, I get up at 3 a.m. Like when somebody comes at me with their bullshit, I'm like, bro, I'll outwork you any fucking day of the week. I may not have the results I want, but I'm telling you that I will outwork you. So it's not something that we're teaching the work ethic per se, but it's just showing somebody that, hey, that there's always someone doing more. So just humble yourself. And for me, that's been one of the hardest things as well, was making sure that number one, I wasn't comparing. Because like they say, comparison is the thief of all joy. And that was me always trying to be better than the next guy, always trying to be better. And it's like, yeah, you can absolutely do it. And there is times where comparison is perfect, but the majority of the time it is not how we need to be showing up. And two, it was like I was taking time away from myself because I was just focused on what everybody else thought. And, for me, it was like, well, I have this ADHD problem and I'm fucking off the walls all the time. But what people don't realize is like I hyperfixate on certain shit. And I could spend 3 hours reading a book that's really fucking good, David Goggins or whatever. And I'm locked in and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And everybody's just like, how are you doing this? Because it's like, I find that one thing. So for you, brother, did you have that one thing that allowed you to start realizing that what you were using is just going to make you a little bit better than everybody else?
Yeah. So, such a great question. I think the first thing that just comes from my heart is um, that one thing is you. It's the reflection in the mirror. And there was a moment in my life where it was hard to look at myself in the mirror, but I realized it was necessary. And I actually have made that an intentional part of my routines in the morning and the nighttime, no matter how I'm feeling, to have an honest, open communication with myself. Because back in the day, I would avoid my emotions. You know, I was taught put your head down, work harder, right? When I came home from school, as I mentioned to you, I would go out there and work. And that was my identity, was working hard. You would detail someone's car, you would cut the grass, and they would say, "Thank you so much for helping me." And you feel good. You did something good. You got to appreciate it. And it always feels good to be appreciated. And then I realized that happen on the moments where you don't feel good when life happens 90% of the time, right? How do you bounce back? So starting my day intentionally talking in the mirror like a winner. I am more than enough. I am beyond capable of doing everything I want to do. I see that vision. This person on the other side, this reflection, he's enough. And now he's got to show up and take action every single day, right? And then saying your gratitude lines. I am here. I am healthy. I do have my family. I'll give you a 30-day ago conversation when I was at the hospital. I did my 9/11 workout, and I'll show you the power of doing that mirror morning exercise. Right? You're a man. You're looking in the mirror. You're like, am I really doing this? Is this really something I should? Yeah, absolutely. You should do it. I don't care who you are, because the mirror doesn't lie. And the sooner that you do it, the sooner you get honest with yourself, the sooner you can move forward. So I don't know about you, Alondis, but I know what it feels like to feel mentally stuck in your brain for 9,855 days. That's 28 years of my life. I would go back and forth between, am I good enough? And then go take effort. Am I good enough? and then go take effort, because I went from being in the driver's seat of my life to then being the passenger seat or in the back of the car, right? So I think giving yourself grace but being honest is important. I think that's the key there.
Yeah, man. I'm laughing now because you talked about getting honest and looking in that mirror. And I realized that life is a mirror, its own self, of the way we look at life. And for me, it was getting to a point where I was working on myself so much that I really realized the inconsistencies of everybody else around me. It's kind of like therapy. Therapy is another fucking thing that gets you, you start going to therapy, you start realizing everybody else's problems. So it's like you got to handle that correctly. You got to figure out how to channel that. For me, I didn't know that. So I thought everybody fucking sucks. And I was just like, bro, you fucking suck. Fuck out my face. I don't believe in you. Why should I listen to you? And it all brought me back to looking in that mirror. And I was like, bro, the thing is every conversation I'm having with these 8-figure, 7-figure, 9-figure entrepreneurs is about being shredded. Every single conversation was going down to, what are you eating? What are you lifting? Whatever. And I'm like, bro, don't talk to me about lifting, because I'm in the gym 6 to 7 days a week. Don't talk to me about eating. And it was like, it's not the eating, it's the, are you disciplined when it matters most? And for me, that's when my problem was the eating. Eating was the comfort thing, make me feel safe. I also want to be bigger. So it was something where I was like, well, if I can always stay above 200 pounds, I'm solid, and then finally get to
Sure.
195 and mentally start thinking differently. And I'm like, well, I look fucking good. But to me, I thought a man isn't a man if you don't weigh 200 pounds. So it was something for me where it was like unpacking those limiting beliefs. Still, it was working, pushing that capacity. So I just found it funny, when you were saying all that, because I'm like, bro, that's exactly what I've been sharing lately, is people don't understand that. And you also don't understand that transfer of energy for when we're at the low frequency. So it's funny because now, I'm starting to think a lot differently. And I realized that the low frequency behavior, and it's like, I don't blame that person, because that's all we knew, was that we didn't take the time, to put the development into ourselves, to have that actualization. But two, I would say, and I bet you can agree with this, is a man only changes when that pain hurts worse than that fear of the future. And for me, it was exactly that. Like, that pain hurt so fucking bad. Like, I didn't think I would get on my knees and be like, God, are you real? And then when I just started looking at it, and I started looking at the visions, and I'm like, bro, this is why I see things differently than people. This is why I have a different outlook on my future and how I'm going to end up and how I'm going to be dying, and visualizing these things, is because, I have a different opportunity than most people. So for you, wrapping that up, brother, how does somebody look at it and then start realizing that they can have a new sense of clarity on their life?
Sure. So I always say that the first and most important thing is just relaxing. I think that, and this is an easier said than done task, but being present and being calm is necessary. And getting yourself in a position where you give yourself the best opportunity to say, hey, listen, I'm about to make a big decision and declare in my life that I'm making changes in my life. Because you can look at, a year in the past and say, why am I still in the same spot? Because you didn't intentionally decide to say, here's what I'm not going to do. This is not who I'm going to be. This is not the identity that I want to be. Right. And start to put boundaries or change habits, or really envision that person that you want to become. And then you start putting it on paper. And 83% of people don't have goals. Of the ones that do, only 13% actually write them down. And the ones that actually write them down obviously have a higher percentage of achieving them. So when you're looking at an identity conversation of who you're working to become every day, because this is a progression, this is a lifestyle, personal development is who you are to the core, and it doesn't stop. Because the moment you stop, here's the tricky part, you go backwards, because life keeps happening, and then you're not catching up with making decisions and growing as a person, right? So looking at your identity, I would say this: number one, who do I not want to be? Draw the line in the sand. Number two, what got you to that point? So you can have self awareness. Third, and most importantly, who do you want to focus on becoming? Who's that person? Right. And that goes in your values and your belief system. And I think a lot of people who don't work on personal development, and hey, that was me 13 years ago, right? Because we weren't taught this in school. It really wasn't talked about until these platforms and real leaders out there, such as yourself, myself, and all the other people out there, are working to bring out in the world is it's a lot of work, right? And so every day you have to be intentional to put things in place and structure so that you can go and do them second nature, and being open in conversations with other people. I'm circling back real quick because a lot of men, and this was me again, I held it in. And you and I know it's like a Pepsi bottle. If you don't share your emotions, we're humans. We're designed to feel,
Yeah.
right?
You know what's funny, is I've been thinking about that. Last year I got into stoicism a lot, and a lot of stoicism is releasing that into me. It's to a point now where like I can't respect a man who holds it in, because I did that and it doesn't feel good. So it's like I know you don't feel good. So if you want to hold those things in, if you don't want to tell your truth, if you don't want to tell about the pain, if you want to hold, whatever lie it is, it just holds more power, takes that energy away from you. And that's something I'm realizing as well, is the more work we put into ourselves, the more that we realize that we need to grow, uh, think about that future version of ourselves, and hey, how am I going to look here? How am I going to perform every day? It just gives you a better concept of who you need to be, how you need to be showing up. But I love that because you also mentioned, most people don't have the goals written, and that's a tough thing for most people because you got to understand where you're at. And a lot of people don't want to have that actualization, don't understand that where they're at is a shitty place. So it goes into, them living the life that they live. And that's why, when you start that journey, it's scary, you don't know what the future is going to hold. You don't know how you're going to be able to react to the future and how you're going to change, and if it's going to take you away from who you are currently and going down that bad path. So for you, brother, what would you say to that previous version of yourself who was looking to recalibrate our mindset? We don't know where to start. We just want to align ourselves with our definition of success.
So I think the last part of your question is the most important. Um, in my early years and in my 20s up until 28, my definition of success was exterior. It was things out there that I could go work hard towards and go earn, and that was my identity at that point, right? At 28, I realized that all my physical goals, tangible in sales, certain amount of money you want to make, right? A certain goal of owning a gym with a partner, achieved it. Having a physical shape, I maintained for from 18 to 30 years old, being in phenomenal shape, doing some modeling as well. And here's what I realized: if you don't do the inward work and you're not honest with your emotions and you hold them in, they're going to stay with you. And it did. And it caught up to me. And the day that I took that cap off the bottle, here's what happened: literally a breakdown. So, my message moving forward to that younger version of myself, I would say, it's all right to feel exactly the way that you are. Be who you are. Don't compare yourself to other people. If you want to cry, cry. If you want to hug someone, hug someone. If you want to let it out, let it out. It's funny because I always say I've never been to a therapist, but when I talk to myself in the mirror, I'm pretty much doing my own therapy, right? And journaling. It's the same thing, man. We get on these men calls. That's all we're doing is we're being honest and real. We're catching up real time to how life happened for the days previous and doing that self-reflection and honesty. And when you can do that and you do the inward work every single day, you can take action because you know where you want to go. And defining happiness has to start with interior success. Because if you don't have the foundation in your heart and you don't know how to regulate your emotions, you're always going to battle back and forth. I'm a professional at doing it for 28 years. I know. I know how to realize it and I know how to change it. And that's really my ultimate message to everybody out there. And not just men, every human.
Yeah, brother, I love that so much, and that's something that I went through as well. And something I continue to think about, and it hits me literally every day in the gym. It's like just think about and feel, and I let my body feel that emotion of not being good enough, of not being someone I'm proud of. And it doesn't feel good, so you realize the things that you don't want to be, and you strive to be the best that you can be. But you're 100% right. That inward reflection and being able to look at yourself and see, the best that you can be, and see that, hey, there's a little action I can take every single day. It changes the game for you, but it takes a lot to get to that point. So I love that you mentioned that, because that's something that, yeah, it's a beautiful thing we need to work on. But until people do that work, they're not going to see that. I really appreciated you today, brother. You've been an amazing guest. You dropped some bombs. Where could people find you, man, if they want to keep up with you, they want to hear more of your story?
Alonda's first and most important. I appreciate you, brother. You know that. I was excited to hop on here with you. I know you're pushing really, really hard. In the back end, a lot of people don't know, man. You got a lot going on, and you're still showing up every day. So I'm proud of you for that. You can just find me on Facebook, Dean Gravinese, and on my Instagram platform as well. Same thing. And just make sure when you put in that name DEAN space GRAVINESE, there's gonna be an older man. That's my dad. And just make sure you click on the right link.
Sounds good, brother. We'll make sure we have that in the show notes. And I appreciate you for the shout out as well. And that's something I had to realize for myself was just because shit gets hard doesn't mean that we drop our pack. We get better and better. And that's something that I've just been showing. And it's been crazy because I'm feeling that in my life. It's like I've done thousands of burpees within this past 2 weeks. And it's not been fun, and I've hated it, and I've hated my body, and I've been throwing up and whatever it is, but I don't give up on it. Number two, it's instilling that discipline within myself, because I can sense, the emotion from me. And usually that would be down a dark path, doing dumb decisions and going down that. But now it's realizing that when you're at that point, and you understand yourself, you're like, man, I can tell that something's not right and that I'm going to make a mistake. So you start, just being vigilant at what it is and journaling and having that therapy session, like you said, with yourself. So I appreciate you, my man. Would definitely love to have you on for a second time in the future. Thank you again, brother.
I appreciate you guys, and hopefully your audience can really dial into this and share the conversation we had. And if we can inspire just one person, man, we're doing a good job. Have a
Yes,
blessed day,
sir.
brother. I
You as
appreciate
well,
you.
brother. God bless you.
Thanks, Alanis. See you.